DeShaun Watson was quite simply one of the most impressive rookie quarterbacks we've seen in recent memory. In a mere 7 games played for the Houston Texans, Watson completed 126 of his throws off of 204 attempts, which is good enough for 62% in the league. He threw 19 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, and for once the Houston Texans seem to be destined to become an actual playoff contender. Which means that if he was to continue at this pace, DeShaun Watson would have thrown for over 40 touchdowns in his rookie season alone. Now, if you ask me, I'm sure there's going to be some kind of outlier, something that would have happened. This couldn't have happened. A rookie quarterback coming in and throwing for 40 touchdowns in a season. I don't gotta be a genius NFL analyst to tell you this. That is absolutely berserk and something that we may never ever see. And unfortunately, due to a torn ACL in practice, we're not gonna see it this season. But that's not to say DeShaun Watson has put together one of the greatest rookie campaigns we've ever seen. I mean, sure, in my unbiased opinion, it doesn't even come close to how good Dak Prescott was last year. But unfortunately for us, DeShaun Watson's rookie season is over, which leads Texans fans to asking, what's next? Well, earlier this week, Bill O'Brien teased the idea of potentially signing Colin Kaepernick for the rest of the season. And as pretty logical football fans, you and I both know that makes a lot of sense. But as also very logical football fans, you and I both know that's probably not going to happen. For the sake of Pete, we're talking about an owner that came out last week and said, we cannot have the inmates running the prison. That is probably one of the most terrible things for an owner to say about the NFL, given all of the issues with social injustices towards NFL players currently. So with that out there, I see one of two scenarios happening. A, the Texans completely avoid Colin Kaepernick like the plague, or B, Bob McNair decides to sign Colin Kaepernick in order to save face for the horrible remarks he made last week. And for the sake of this video, we're gonna go with B. What would happen if the Houston Texans were to sign Colin Kaepernick? Would they have been better than they would have been if Tom Savage was leading the way? Colin Kaepernick has a slightly similar skill set to DeShaun Watson in the sense that he's very mobile, but I don't think he has a cannon of an arm like DeShaun Watson does, nor do I think he's as accurate as DeShaun Watson. So in this video, we're going to be simulating to the offseason to see how the Houston Texans would fare if they were to sign Colin Kaepernick to a contract. Now, personally, I feel like this is the most logical move, but we all have an idea of Colin Kaepernick being blackballed in the NFL, so I would not be surprised whatsoever if they elected to sign, I don't know, another quarterback instead. I think they went out and signed Matt McGlone already instead of him, or I don't know if that was a different team. But here we go. So the Houston Texans end up finishing 5-11. When we started our simulation, the Houston Texans were 3-5 as they were in real life. In our simulation, Colin Kaepernick started 1 game. He completed 28 of his passes off of 36 attempts. He threw 4 touchdowns, completed 77% of his passes, and then Tom Savage automatically got started over him. And that makes 0 sense whatsoever because Tom Savage is definitely the inferior quarterback here, throwing 8 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Colin Kaepernick has a higher rating than Tom Savage as well, and it doesn't look like Colin Kaepernick got injured at all during this entire process. So with this in mind, we're going to assume that this is what were to happen if Tom Savage was going to start the rest of the season. This wasn't a good enough test. So when Tom Savage starts out the rest of the season, you can see he was able to complete 128 of his passes for 8 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. DeAndre Hopkins finished with over 1,000 yards receiving with 78 receptions. Will Fuller had 80 receptions himself. And Lamar Miller didn't really have the greatest year for himself, but it looks like the Houston Texans elected to run a RBC, which wasn't the most successful, but it was decent. But there's no doubt in my mind that the Houston Texans are desperately missing DeShaun Watson. Let's see what would happen if Colin Kaepernick was to get the start instead of Tom Savage. Here we go, guys. This is round 2. We have Colin Kaepernick now leading the way. The Texans are currently 3-5, although the Rams don't seem to have the correct record here. Let's see what Colin Kaepernick could do for these Houston Texans. Can he take them to the playoffs still? Let's simulate and find this out. Now, I remember when the Texans went ahead and drafted Tom Savage, who was considered to be one of the most NFL ready players in the draft, I think 2 or 3 years ago. I really think some team could actually unlock Tom Savage's potential. I think at the end of the day, he may just be destined to be a straight backup, and that's actually respectable. It's just his arm is a cannon and there's so much potential there. And let's take a look right here. You guys saw that the Texans didn't finish with such a great record over there. So you can see that the Houston Texans finished 6-10, which is just 1 game better than they would have if they started Tom Savage. Colin Kaepernick was able to finish off with 10 touchdowns, 7 interceptions off of 162 completions. He had a pass completion percentage of 60 and a passer rating of 83.2. In terms of receiving, you can see that Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins are still leading the way. Although DeAndre Hopkins wasn't able to crush the 1,000 yard receiving mark, which isn't that bad because he just came underneath it. Now what's strange is Bruce Ellington really blew up, man. 926 receiving yards, 68 receptions. He's definitely established himself as one of the best slot receivers in the league as a result of Colin Kaepernick being his quarterback. And it looks like Lamar Miller was able to break the 1,000 yard rushing mark, and I guess that's because with Colin Kaepernick, you could definitely make a nice little read option combination. But all in all, guys, you could see that signing Colin Kaepernick for the rest of the season didn't seem to have helped the Houston Texans by that much. But this is my simulation. This is what happened to me. Personally, I think the Houston Texans should sign Colin Kaepernick just because it would be a great PR move to make Bob McNair look better after what he said about NFL players last week. But in terms of just pure football and how good they will be on the field, I don't think it's worth going out and signing Colin Kaepernick when you have a chance to further develop your backup quarterback, Tom Savage, and eventually drive up his value to hopefully be able to trade him. But that's a huge if. That's, in fact, I don't even see that happening. All I'm saying is you have more to gain in the long term if you were to trot out Tom Savage in terms of developing a backup QB and hopefully being able to trade him to another team this offseason. But in terms of pure public relations, you may want to go out and sign Colin Kaepernick. So let me know in the comment section, what would you do if you were the Houston Texans? Would you sign Colin Kaepernick, or would you trot out Tom Savage for the rest of the season? Other than that, guys, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like. I'm your boy, TheFlightMike, and I'm signing out, bro.